Hey, good evening, everybody. John Henry Soto here, along with George Batista. As always, welcome to Counterparts, where we spotlight conversations with creative minds. Today, we have Lesley Diana on the show, and we are so excited because she's been such a supporter of the show, and she's helped us out with. She's the founder of the Promotion People, and we are going to be talking a lot about that. So I don't want to just keep going because you know what happens. So just hang tight and get ready for a great conversation. All right, welcome back. Thank you very much for listening to our little opening there. We appreciate you all for joining us. As I mentioned, Lesley Diana is going to be here today, and we're going to be talking a lot about so many things about artists and managing artists and being a publicist, and just it's going to be a great conversation. First of all, I'm going to turn it over to George so we can give some love to our sponsor.
Thank you, sir. So the Counterpart Show is brought to you by Wellness Resources, a family-owned and operated nutritional supplement company providing the highest quality, clinically formulated supplements since 1985. Find out why Wellness Resources supplements are the top choice for health-conscious individuals around the world. Go to myvitaminresource.com. And if you enter the promo code Counterparts, you will get free shipping on all orders.
Cool.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about our guest today, Lesley Diana. So Lesley established the Promotion People in 1994 after years of working in the media and entertainment industry, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes. As a unit publicist, she worked on over 60 high feature film and television series, including many shot in Vancouver for Sony Pictures, DirecTV, and eOne TV. As a personal publicist to some of Canada's most talented actors, she has worked alongside some of the country's brightest stars as their careers rise on the big and small screens. And we are absolutely happy to have her on the show. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Lesley Diana.
Hi.
All right.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for being on. This has been an amazing honor for us because you've been such a supporter of what we're doing here, and you've supplied us, if that's if that's I think that's I don't know if how that sounds, but you've supplied us with some amazing guests on our show, and it's been fantastic. And I was talking to George when I was like, wait a minute, why don't like we need to have Lesley on. I was
Absolutely.
like, because she's been fantastic. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. And it's a two-way street, right?
Yes.
Yes. My clients and I need you, and you need us, and so it works together.
Yeah, and the client, we've had so much fun, so many great conversations. It's been great. So I'm gonna, as we sometimes do here, George is like kind of the official. He writes things down. I write things down, but mine, if you read it, you won't know what it is. It's only I do. It's like, it's my own thing. So, George, I'm going to turn it over to you so you can start our questions.
Absolutely. So, for those of you, those of folks who are listening and watching who really don't know much about you, first of all, I really want to dive into, the world of the publicist and exactly what you do and everything, even from my education, because I don't know a lot about that industry. I know John, has more, has a lot more information on that because he's been in the industry and I haven't. But that's the thing. But I want to specifically about you. I want to know how you got into it. I know you were both behind and in front of the camera. So tell us a little about your background and how you kind of got into the industry to begin with.
All right. So I have a long background, but I was a teacher, phys ed teacher, and I went to a conference and about the lack of physical fitness in women, and they went around after to say, what can you do when you get back out there? And I said, well, I think a TV show would be good. And a fellow at the conference came up to me, he said, are you serious? He said, if you are, I think I can get you one. So he went to CTV, which is a national network in Canada.
Right.
And I was living in Saskatoon at the time, and so I did an audition and they accepted me. So for 11 years, I had a fitness show and a talk show. The fitness show was Fitness Fun with Lesley, and the talk show was feminine focus, focusing on all the aspects of a woman's life. So
Wow.
while I had that, I also had a fitness studio and manicures, pedicures, massage, boutique. And then I stopped doing the show. I closed the fitness studio, and I ended up opening up 4 ladies' wear stores across Western Canada.
Wow.
And how I got into being a publicist in the film industry is we used to get so much publicity for our stores. We used to get the front pages of the fashion page and magazines and so on. So I ended up closing those stores, and I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do. So I put a package together and I sent it out to my competitors and to fashion designers. And one in Montreal got my package. She opened it. She called me right away. She said, Lesley, I got your package. I don't know what's in it, but whatever it is, I want to be part of it. So she hired me as her publicist for all of Canada. And then I got Timberland and a couple of shopping malls. And then a film director needed a publicist for the premiere of Stag.
Mm-hmm.
And that was back in, I think, either 1999 or 2000. And so a friend of mine said, I know a publicist. She hasn't done film, but what's the difference? So he hired me. And then I ended up doing three of his films. I did Christina's House, and then I got to do My Five Wives with Rodney Dangerfield.
Oh, wow.
That was my second movie, and I've got a cute story about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it
Some of them I'll tell you, some of them I won't.
I want to hear them all, but I'll take anything.
The one that this is one of my most favorite days as a publicist. As a unit publicist, what you do is you work when the film is in production, which means you gather all the parts that are needed to promote the film, and we do what is called an EPK, an electronic press kit, and that consists of interviewing the lead actors, then shooting behind the scenes, and then you package it all together, and then that's what you have to give all the entertainment media across the world, really.
Okay.
So one day I had to do all the interviews, and there was Rodney, Jerry Stiller, and Andrew Dice Clay.
Oh.
So I had to go
What a trio.
go up to a mountain with full of snow and interview Rodney. And then I had to go back down into the city, and Jerry Stiller, bless his heart, was supposed to go home the day before, but because I wanted to interview him, he stayed over, and we did the interview around a hotel swimming pool, and he was a delight.
Yeah.
And then I had to go out to a tennis court, and it was the last scene of the day. It's like 10, 11 at night, to interview Andrew Dice Clay. And he stuck around and didn't mind after his long day doing my interview. And everybody that I talked to in regards to both Jerry and Andrew, anybody that worked with Rodney said they would do anything for Rodney.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You know, I've heard so many interviews about Rodney, and just he was just this kind person. He had his ways, you know. He was it was sort of his his journey that he was not going to waver from. You know, he was going to always be on that journey. But within that journey, he was just so kind to so many people, and especially comedians. When he had that club downtown in Manhattan, you know, he would just spend so many hours there, and he would just give these opportunities, and he would tell people, "Hey, that was kind of funny. You're a funny guy," you know. And it was funny that he didn't never felt. I never felt like he was intimidated, or that he felt, you know. I think he kind of was like, "I'm here," you know. I'm.
He was a big man, and he, you know, would talk about no respect, but everybody respected him.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So started off as a unit publicist, and then away it went.
Wow. So just quickly on Jerry Stiller, who I know has left us recently. He always seemed, in every interview, he always seemed, and people who worked with him, that he's just a great human being.
And he loved his wife so much.
Yeah.
So proud of his kids. One of his daughters was also in the movie. And he was just a delightful man. I have his picture on my wall.
Wow, that's great.
Oh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
It seems like from the beginning you've had this like entrepreneurial spirit, right? You've always it seems like you were a go-getter. You went out there, you got it, you know, that type of thing. How, you know, did that develop? Was that something that, you know, was that did your parents kind of show you that, or was that just something that, you know, took off as you went along?
I guess I believed in myself.
Okay.
And I started off when I was in high school. I was captain of sports teams. I was girls sports director on the SRC student council and social director. So I think I gained confidence, and I started teaching when I was 19. So I was always ahead of, I guess, and I came up with ideas that were somewhat ahead of the curve.
Right.
Like, for instance, my talk show, Feminine Focus, all about the aspects of a woman's life. Well, now there's tons of those kinds of shows.
Right.
And I guess just belief in yourself. And I was just very blessed in that I would put it out there and I would get it back. Because most of the opportunities that have come my way they've come my way. I haven't necessarily had to pound the pavement.
Isn't that interesting? Because you know, there's so many people that are out there and they're like sweating and they're struggling and they're everything, you know. And I think the energy of the journey goes away, and then you don't really have a sincerity in that journey because you're on this must-have of this thing that you want. But when you're free and you have, like you said, when you really believe in yourself,
right,
and you have that confidence, you're free.
Yes.
You're open. You have energy is open enough to be able to come in. That's a wonderful thing. And did you have tremendous obstacles being a woman coming into being a publicist? Because I don't know much about that. And George says, like, I'm not in that world like that. People don't realize what goes into getting a performer in front of people. You know, it's not just auditioning. There's a whole thing behind it.
Well, once again, it came to me. I had worked on 3 films with Emmanuel Vauger: Ripper, Suddenly Naked, and My 5 Wives. And one day she came to my office and she said, you've worked on 3 of my movies as the publicist. How would you like to be my personal publicist? And I said, sure, why not? It's not saying no. In other words, when opportunities come to you, take them if you're interested.
Right.
You just never know where they'll go. And if you don't know something, you can find it out. Right. Especially nowadays, you just need to Google things. So, and we are still working together today. We just did a cover sheet for a magazine for BMW a couple of weeks ago. She's in a movie that was on Hallmark last Saturday, again tonight.
Right.
And so a lot of my clients, they come and go because they only need publicity when they've got something to promote.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
They won't necessarily be my client every month, every year.
Okay.
I might work with them, and then 2 years later, I work with them again. And so I've been lucky that most of them do come back to me.
Okay.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. So I'm wondering, so there's got to be that trust factor, right, when they're working with you, right? So they've got to, I'm assuming that when she approached you about it, she felt like, okay, I can trust this person to do right by me and to, really work together. And like, talk about like those relationships that you're building with these folks. I mean, how, like, do they mostly come to you now, versus, or is it that you go to them, or is it, how does that work?
Well, I've been fortunate because I've got most of my clients word of mouth.
Okay.
So one actor might be talking to another actor and they'll say, oh, I saw you in this magazine and on that TV show and so on. And they'd say, oh, well, Lesley's my publicist. And so they would come to me. Okay. And I would have to say that most of my work has either come word of mouth or agents. Different. Agent gets the client work. Well, actually, the client gets themselves the work by doing a great audition and getting booked. But it's the agent that brings the projects to them. And then once they have something coming out, they want to promote it because it helps them. One, especially for Canadians, they need press if they want to work in the States.
Right.
That's part of what needs to be part of their package. And also, especially today with Twitter and Instagram and so on, it might be between two people for the role. And often directors and producers might go to their social media. And if one person's very active and has tens of thousands of followers and the other one doesn't, they might go with the one that has all the followers because they know that they will also promote the show when it's out. Sure. And a perfect example is Big Sky River, which Emmanuel is in. Mark did lots of promotion for it, but also Emmanuel did too.
Okay.
So, and of course the networks love it because she's driving her fans and people to watch the show, and they get great ratings, and so then she becomes part of the family.
Yeah, and that trust factor is really it's really huge. I mean, that is the reason why they would come to you, and also, repeat business, because it's like, we had such a great, great time. Definitely we're going to go back, and that's also, it's not just the trust, but it's also the fact that, you have somebody in that space already kind of there, that you don't have to, it takes away the pressure of having to like think, all right, who are we going to use? Well, of course we know we're going to use, who we're going to use.
Right.
That's done already. So I think a lot of the agencies, and correct me if I'm wrong, they like, they want everyone to do well. This is one of the things about when I talk about, to actors about auditioning. When you go into that audition room, that casting, they want you to be the one. They want you to come in and blow them away. So they're always on your side. There's nobody, they're not against you or anything. If you weren't right for that role, it's just because you weren't right for that role, and that's it.
Right.
And it's the same with the whole industry. With being a publicist and a manager and an agent and a casting director, it's like they all want, because there's so much money on the table, they really don't have time to be messing around. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about social media, because that's interesting what you just said. That an actor might be overlooked based on their followers and it happens like that in music, and it happens with I know record labels go to TikTok to see who's got a million views and who can sing this much.
Right.
And they're gonna use that. Is that something that you run into, that Well, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, my thoughts are, I think it's important the actor or musician, because I also work with musicians,
Right.
as long as they feel comfortable doing it. And for instance, with our social media, with the promotion people, it's mainly promoting our clients. So if they have, as you've noticed, if they're having an interview with you, I will promote it.
Right.
So everybody helps each other. And then if the client, the actor also talks about it, then it helps build up, there's more for their fans to see about them.
Right.
Build it up, and then they get more followers. And some actors who are really into social media like to do publicity because then they've got more information to post on their Instagram and Twitter and so on. That's substantial, rather than, oh, here's a photo of me in this outfit today, and there's a photo of me in that outfit tomorrow.
Right.
It's something that's got some substance.
Yeah. And also, I mean, there's different sides. Some people are like, oh, that's not right. I hate that. And some people are like, well, it's opened up a lot of opportunities to people that might have not had that opportunity had they not had this social media platforms to kind of put their stuff on there. So it kind of works both ways. I think I like it. I work in social media.
You post a lot.
I do post a lot. Yeah, I know.
She does.
John's got another video. Okay, John, I'm keeping.
Yeah, I post a lot. I remember in the beginning stages of social media, I remember somebody came to me and was like, John, you are posting way too much. I don't have time to read all of it. I was like, no, you don't have to read any of it. There's an unfriend button.
No, not gonna.
That was George. No,
we appreciate your enthusiasm.
no, I thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, social media can have that effect, but at the same time, it's also, like you said, I mean, it's giving jobs to those that are willing to put themselves out there.
Right.
That's the difficult part, is really getting that confidence to get out there and to do that. You have to have some, I don't know, I think you have to be a little insane to do what I do. But I think a lot of people, if they're willing to put their work out there, they're confident. And I think what you said earlier when you opened up, being, confident in yourself, that right there is really the foundation of everything. If you have that, I think everything else will open up for you. And especially if you don't take a loss as such a, it's just like, okay, well, that happened. I'm going to continue on my journey, and that goes away. It's so important. Can you talk a little bit about mindset of the performers that you work with? What do you look for? Like, is there someone that's ever, maybe you don't have to give a name, but do you sometimes say, like, I don't really feel comfortable?
The people that I do suggest that they wait is if they say somebody is a new actor and they get 1 or 2 lines in a movie or a TV series, and they've got a resume of 2 to 4 roles,
Right.
I usually suggest they wait.
Right.
Okay.
Because first of all, they don't necessarily have that much to talk about.
Right.
And, people pay me a retainer, and I don't want to take their money if I don't feel like they're earning much from acting.
Sure.
And at that point, they're probably not going to get that much interest from interviewers anyway.
Right.
So I just suggest that they wait. Or for instance, a musician who's putting out their first single. Somebody like that, I just suggest that they wait and build it up, because it's probably not to their benefit at the beginning. Now, it's different if somebody's lucky and gets a big role or is a lead or recurring. then that's a whole different story because they've got something to talk about. They've got a great role. So that's what I suggest to people. So I don't take absolutely everybody. I do take people who have a story to tell, and I think that I can get them pressed. Because I don't want to take them, charge them, then I don't get them anything, then they're disappointed. And often, or sometimes they might think it's my fault because I didn't try hard enough. And that's not the case. I really would try. I pitch.
Yeah, that would be a sad thing, because then if you don't have enough to really put them out there, I was casting once for a film, and I had a resume, and on it said Al Pacino, and I can't remember the movie. It was one of the later films in the 90s, and I'm like, wow, Al Pacino, so he's basically in the scene, has no lines, he's like in the back, but there's a moment where he's on screen with Al Pacino, but he has no lines. And things like that, you as a performer, as an actor, you have to kind of like be able to objectively look at what it is that I'm working on, and what it is can be publicized. Is this can this be publicized? Hey, I'm in the background of Al Pacino,
But, and I could imagine that that's probably there in what you said, John, about mindset, because I'm sure that there's actors out there like, okay, I'm Al Pacino. That's it. I've made it. And they have this mindset that they're way bigger than they really are.
Than they,
And
I think it's also the excitement of it too. You can get lost in this industry, you get lost in it. You're suddenly like, I mean, George and I have been, we've interviewed, like David Sanchez that was on here, and we were like,
oh boy.
I mean, we thank you so much for bringing him to us, because he was just incredible. But we're like,
like kids in the candy store, because we're these are, some of these people are folks that we listen to, and as musicians we were inspired by as kids, watching these guys play and all these things. So now we're actually getting to interview them and also kind of find out what their mindset is in music and in life and all that. So it's huge.
And that excitement also, we want to make sure it doesn't go, we take a screenshot and be like, hey, we're best friends with David.
Right.
So you asked me about the mindset of successful actors. You didn't say successful, but I'm throwing that in there.
Right.
I would say that, first of all, they're passionate about it, and it's just part of them, and they really believe in the craft and really are focused. So many times I make arrangements with some of my friends who are actors, and then we have to cancel because they've got a big audition and they've got to stay home and memorize lines, and of course nowadays everybody has to have their own lighting and camera and sound and set themselves up. There's not so much going to the casting directors anymore and doing it in front of them. You have to do everything, so it's a lot of work. And so I would say being passionate about it, doing some training. A lot of actors perhaps get started and think they just have to memorize lines and that's all they need to do. But there's some very, very good acting schools all over. We've got many in Vancouver. So, I think that's important, especially when you're starting. And then just to be, and also I think keeping yourself healthy, both spiritually and in your mind and physically.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Most of my successful actors definitely have a workout regime. They meditate, they eat healthy. Not all of them, but I would say the majority that are doing well. And also they expand. So they might start off as an actor, but then get into directing, into producing, into teaching. So, which is another really good idea, because if all you're doing is staying home waiting for the call, then you can go into an audition feeling or looking desperate.
Right.
Because you haven't had a paycheck for 6 months, a year. And so, I think that's important too.
I'm wondering how you handled when the whole pandemic started and everything kind of got shut down.
Well, I got to work on a movie with Ashanti,
Oh, okay.
the Honey Girls, during the pandemic. And it was very, very controlled. We had to go in and get tested every 3 days.
Right.
And everybody had to wear masks. Everybody had to stay away. The whole craft tables changed. You go and you get your little packages of this and that, which in some respects is good because you don't gain as much weight that way. Because being on set, there's a lot of downtime.
Yes.
You end up going to the crafts table and craft services table and eating things you'd never eat at home. But so that changed, and then more of this. So all of a sudden, I used to have actors go into morning shows and entertainment shows, and journalists would come out and interview. Well, that all stopped.
Yeah.
It became Zoom.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's awesome. I wanted to backtrack just a second on when you're talking about passion. With there was a story with Dustin Hoffman where he talked about, and I've told it probably on here a few times, but he talks about, he says, I'd still be doing this even if I didn't get The Graduate in '68. I would still be doing this somewhere. I'd be doing it in community theater. I'd be doing it anywhere. And then he mentioned about Picasso. Yeah, Picasso talking about how if you take my paints, I'll use my pastels. If you take my pastels, I will, and he goes, if you take everything, I would spit on my finger and I will dab on the wall and I will create art that way. So it's such a passion that you're going to do it no matter what. Right. And you're not looking at the red carpet and all those things. You're looking at the craft, at the craft. And what you said was so spot on about the other things. The mindset is also not just the craft. You have to stay in shape, mental shape, personal development. Reading is really important. A lot of actors are big readers, and research. That's how you find characters. That's how you build up. So yeah, I just wanted to backtrack on that because it's so important for actors to understand that you can't just take a weekend class, and then can go back every 6 months for a weekend class, and then it's an art. There's craft there.
It's a profession.
It's a profession. Yeah, it's definitely a.
And when we talked to William B. Davis, he talked about that. He talked about the why. Why is it that you're doing it? Even when he talked about why you're saying your lines, know exactly what the character and why the character is saying it before you even learn your lines, right?
Yes.
So he talked about, is it that you're doing this because you want to be famous and you want to be on the red carpet, just like John said, or is it because you just love what you do? And as musicians, John and I know this very well because that's exactly why we play music, whether we were famous or not, because we just love the whole process of creating music and doing that whole thing.
Yeah.
I really feel that shows like yours, when you get people like David and William and a number of the other guests that we've had, people should listen because they're going to learn something. Yes. Even if you learn one thing, like for instance, William B. Davis. Mm-hmm. All you have to do is memorize your lines and go in there. Well, he absorbs that whole character.
Yes.
And in fact, today he's on the set of Upload. He's filming the next season of Upload. And he's been acting for, probably 70 years.
Wow. Unbelievable.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
He started when I was 12 on the radio.
Yeah, wow. That's right. I remember he started with radio.
Yeah. We also had on Mauricio Bustamante, right? He was on here, and he worked with
Lee Strasberg.
Lee Strasberg in New York, and he's a teacher there, and he actually just retired recently, but same kind of sentiment, it's like the craft and the why, he talked about that. And you have to you have to love it, but not in a, you have to almost, it is kind of like an obsession, but it's a healthy one.
Right.
You know, you have to really just wake up in the morning knowing that this is something that I really love to do, not because of any other reason other than I want to be a storyteller.
Right.
Well, I think it's wonderful for anybody, regardless of what they do in life, to have a job that doesn't feel like work. And I shouldn't say I never feel like it's work. I mean, sometimes it does. But for the most part, I just love what I do. I love to see the results I get. I love to see how people grow. I love to see when they get a role that they just love and do so well at and get praise for. And you were asking about, there's different sides to being a publicist.
Mhm.
We talked about unit publicity on a film, but then there's the publicity for when the film comes out.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
Okay.
If a producer or director doesn't have a publicist or a team in place, you can have the best movie in the world, but if you don't let people know about it and people don't then see it, somebody has to go out there, and that's when the directors and producers encourage their actors to have interviews and share their experience and then get people intrigued in watching the movie. And then I also do red carpets.
Oh, wow.
Where I produce most of the big red carpets in Vancouver. Not all of them, but a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when the actor gets to come out and have the quick interviews with the entertainment reporters, get their photo taken, and feel good about themselves.
Yeah. so there's a lot. There's different sections. So when you go into a project, when you're starting at the beginning stages of it, are you already with the mindset of thinking, okay, this, I know I'm going to be doing this again when this is completed in 4 months, 5 months, next year, whenever it's out. So you kind of already have your notes set up and ready for the next phase?
Well, it depends. If it's an independent movie, I will often do the unit publicity and the release publicity.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
I'm working with Sony or DirecTV or eOne. Often they have their team in place at headquarters. So I just provide them with all the tools they need to be able to do that. Just the unit publicist. Whereas if I'm on an independent film, then I would do both. Or a lot of independent films won't even have a unit publicist. They'll just have a publicist for when the movie comes out.
And what style of movie do you enjoy actually?
Well, I like comedies, romantic comedies. I like intrigue. I've worked on some really good TV series, like Roll with Cole Hauser, who's now on Yellowstone.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
He plays Rick.
Yeah.
Right.
But that was an interesting TV series. I worked on I.A.S.T.E. Donald Sutherland was in it.
Wow.
And a lot of intrigue, so I like that. I'm not a huge horror fan, but I do publicity for horror. I told Emmanuel I still haven't seen Saw because I can't
bear it.
After being killed. Spoiler.
Yeah.
You get killed on Saw.
I know. Yeah, one of the things about horror for me was I was on a film set once where I saw a lot of the how things were actually done, and I kind of lost a little bit of like, I guess because what's happening, and it really, I look at somebody like, and we talked about him last week, I think, Georgia, Hitchcock, where there was really not the kind of gore or anything that you would, but man, you were like hanging on every scene, and the the tension was just so thick in those films and those scenes. So that's always something that's interesting for me to see what people are interested in. Now, do you take the same approach when it's a film or it's a musician, or do you kind of have a template of, or you've been?
I have somewhat of a template for actors and for film, because especially with film, there's requirements needed from character descriptions to bios on the actors, the directors, photos. Have to go shift through thousands of photos, get actors to, if they've got approval, to X out the ones they don't want. So there's a lot of back and forth. So as a publicist, I mainly work with the actors, the producers, the directors, and the agents for the actors or their publicists, because they need to get approval. I need to get bios and so on. And then work with production on the synopsis and so on. And we build what's a press kit with all that information in.
So the press kits are, it's so fascinating, because a lot of people don't know what it takes to make a film, right? They go and they see a film, and that's their job. I mean, they're not supposed to know that, right?
Right.
But if they knew the level of work that comes way before, even sometimes way before even a frame is shot, it's really, you really tend to appreciate it. It's really the only, because George and I are musicians. I mean, I can pick up my guitar and I can play right here alone, and I can record something alone. But a film, and having been on films and shot films, you can't. I've tried, actually. I did a short film by myself because I thought, let me just try to do all the parts. And it was a short film, and I thought I was going to go crazy because it's so much to handle. You really need hands, and qualified and responsible and trustworthy hands, especially when you get to work with people like Sony and so on.
One thing I would say to any independent filmmakers out there, or people who are making their first movie, a lot of times somebody will come to me once they've got a movie and it's coming out, and so I'll ask them for stills, and they haven't taken any, and there's opportunities that they totally miss and they can't get back.
Wow.
And so then they're taking screenshots. And especially too with directors, for instance, they'll hire me to promote the film and promote them, but all they have is a headshot. Well, that's boring. We want a picture of the director directing, talking to the staff, standing by the camera, and behind the scenes is important because it just shows the interest of how the whole film came together. So to independent filmmakers out there, make sure you have somebody, especially if you don't have a big budget, just have somebody there to take some pictures, just because once that scene's gone, it's gone, and you can't get it back.
Yeah, I think because of social media and because how I am on social media, I was instinctively, so I have tons of pictures of me directing and doing things.
And I'm just waiting. I wanted to piggyback on that for a second with social media, and I wanted to ask you, how did your business change before social media versus afterwards?
More paperwork.
Oh yeah.
I used to go to the printers. Back to Emmanuel, we used to put a press kit together, and we were getting her. I'm not going to deny, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be getting the covers. I would pitch, but because it was her, we would get covers, and still do. But then I would have to go to the printers and run them all off, and then we'd send them out to, say, another magazine, so they would see all that she has. Well, now she's got a great website, a great press kit.
Right.
Everything's done online. So I used to have pages and pages. And also, too, for instance, when I would send out a press release, now all I have to do is put it all online. And I've got women who work with me, Jasmine and Josephine. Jasmine is my other publicist, and Josephine does a lot of the social media, makes things look pretty. So I couldn't do all this without the two of them.
Hmm.
But, so before the good old days of faxing, I'd have to fax,
Right.
and then it would be busy. So then I would go to the next place that I was faxing, and then I would have a different cover letter because you send it to the fax machine, and it's a big office with I don't know how many people on the same fax machine. So that is one big change I really appreciate.
Yeah.
I can imagine.
I see myself sitting in front of that damn fax machine going, "Hey,
Yeah.
come on, I got to get this through so I can get on to the next."
Exactly.
I mean, we had somebody that talked about putting their auditions on VHS and then having to mail them.
Yeah, look at
So
that.
they were like Los Angeles, I guess they were one of the first ones to kind of like say, send us a VHS. And
Right.
not everyone in the late 80s, early 90s had a VHS camera just hanging around and
Right.
recording, but so we're definitely in a different place right now. And I think there's more opportunity,
Yeah.
Also, even the three of us talking.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Probably, 20 years ago, that might not have happened.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I mean, I tell George,
You and you wouldn't have found me. And I don't even know how we did find each other, but whatever.
the
There was
stars,
an email in there somewhere, but
stars were aligned and it led us to the sunflowers.
exactly. There you go. Perfect.
This has been awesome. I want to actually ask you, I ask all our guests, during the pandemic, obviously we've had 2 years of tremendous adversity for a lot of people, and a lot of actors just could not work.
No, that's right.
Musicians could not play.
That's
And
right.
it just shut down the artists, and it was like devastating, really, because you really got to understand that danger. People are getting back. Not everyone is still comfortable, though, to kind of fully get out there, especially with other things going on. What advice would you give to someone out there who's sort of on the fence of deciding, okay, I really want to get out there again, but I'm still a little bit nervous? What should, or what would you say to someone like that in any field?
Well, I feel like people with the vaccines have felt a little bit more freedom because people who are getting COVID now, in comparison to when there weren't vaccines,
Right.
aren't getting as sick.
Right.
So I wouldn't use COVID as an excuse anymore.
Right.
That's my thoughts.
Yeah.
I do recall, now that we're talking about it, one, there wasn't much work because there weren't movies being made. Everything just kind of shut down one day.
Right.
People really didn't know how to deal with it. So there wasn't any work. So there wasn't work for actors or so on. You had Rick Dugdale on, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So he did the NFT with
Yeah. Right.
Right.
zero contact. So there you go. There's somebody who's ahead of the curve. He's thinking, what can we do? We can't go to a studio. We can't do, so let's be creative and come up with a new way to do things.
Yeah.
So there are definitely, different filmmakers out there that got creative and more or less didn't let it stop them.
Yeah.
So kudos to them.
Yeah. And it's all what you said earlier about growth, developing. Just because that stopped doesn't mean that you have to stop developing and figuring it out. Rick Dugdale was like, well, we got to figure something out. And that's what he figured out. And I think Alex, and I have trouble pronouncing his name, but yeah, he had that wonderful series. He had that.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was just great to see, oh, wow. Okay. So we can take control over this even during these hard times. You just have to, there is an education that you have to kind of sit through and learn what an NFT is and how to work them and all that stuff. But YouTube will teach you everything. This is another thing that I tell everyone. I'm like, did you go to YouTube to see? Because whenever they're like, how do you do this? I'm like, did you go to YouTube? I'll show you. I'll teach you. But YouTube has everything. So that's great.
I think too, for instance, being open to ideas.
Mm-hmm.
A year ago, I used to just think, okay, I just love being a publicist. That's what I'll probably end up doing forever. And then a fellow I know who's a host of a radio show said, Lesley, we want you to book our talent. So now I'm booking talent for the radio show. And then I ended up with another client who was coming to Vancouver to shoot another TV series. And of the 18 guests, I think I booked 10 of them. So it's interesting. You don't necessarily know what's coming your way, but if you're open to it and you don't say no, you give it a try.
That's right.
And that's and it seems like that's
enjoying it, and it's opened up. Now they want me to executive produce. So
wow,
it's really been. I've definitely had an interesting life and an interesting career.
Yeah.
And one thing is just.
You've, like you said, you were ahead of the curve in a lot of those areas, and those questions you actually, I'm sure you asked yourself even when you were first starting out, with that mindset of, okay, how do I do this, and where can I do? And then you saw your opportunities, and then you went for it. Right. And I think overall, even for the artists out there, even now, that's an example that they can take and say, listen, where can I be ahead of the curve? Where are those opportunities I can take? Where, even if it's a small little thing, don't say no, grab it, take it, run with it, because that can lead to something else. I mean, John and I talked about even this show, right? When I approached John to do something, and, we didn't think it was going to really grow to where it's gone now. And this has given us great opportunities to where we're now, meeting all these people and doing all these different great things, right?
Yeah.
I know. It's so true. Absolutely.
Yeah. I decided to say yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And then figure out how to do it in the 2 days before you actually go there and have to do it.
Right. Exactly. But your clients are also very lucky to have you with them, because you come with the experience of also front of the camera, behind the camera,
right,
the working on sets, and you understand the industry so well. It makes it so much easier for them to not have to educate their publicists on anything happening, And
I'm fortunate, especially when you're doing interviews, like when I was interviewing Rodney Dangerfield and Andrew Dice Clay, and this was my second or third film, I forget, but it was definitely in the beginning. And I'm interviewing people who have vast resumes and so on. But, I could draw back onto my experience as a talk show host.
Exactly.
Right.
Answering questions, or asking questions, I should say. And the other thing that's nice, too, is I don't feel like I need to be in front of the camera anymore, because I've already done that. And I feel comfortable in my position of helping guide their careers.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's so great. Lesley Diana, thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful, again, George and I, we look up and we're like, holy crap, we're almost at
time just flies.
Almost at an hour. It's one of those things where we always ask if you ever want to come back and we can pick an actual topic and break it down and actually do that, because I think that it's so helpful. And what you said earlier, which I'm really grateful that you said, that when people watch this show, that they do learn something. And that's what I was telling George even before we went on. What's our product? Our product is, education and entertainment.
Right.
Those are our products. We want to entertain people. We also want them to leave there going, oh, I didn't know that. Now I know that.
Exactly.
And so it's great to have you on here and being able to educate our audience. So thank you so much for being on.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And we'll definitely be talking. We are tied on the internet forever.
So we'll see what the fall. My August is going to be a little bit slower, just because I'm going to take a little time. But
good.
Back in the fall, I'm sure there'll be new opportunities coming up, and I've got great clients that have lots to say.
Excellent.
That's so great. Thank you so much, Lesley Diana. Thank you very much for being on.
Well done.
Thanks for having me and having all our clients on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Woo!
Wow.
See?
Wow. Fantastic conversation.
He's awesome. And that's the thing. I had a few other things but we'll have to have her back on again because
No,
there's
absolutely.
so
But
much
we get to.
cover. It's not an industry that you can just cover in like
No, you're right.
an hour.
You're,
You know what I mean?
you're right.
Like,
No, but even with this short conversation, I mean,
Yeah.
I definitely got an education, and I learned
Right.
a lot about that life and what goes on. I mean, a lot of things I had no clue. You know.
Yeah,
so.
what I learned the most is that I need to get some sunflowers. I was like, they look amazing. I was
Yeah,
like,
they did. They look fantastic.
they look great. I love it. So, all right, folks, we want to thank you all for tuning in. We appreciate you very much. We'll see you again next Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For George Batista, I'm John Henry Soto. Well, welcome.
Welcome.
The sunflowers have me all amazed. Have a great night, and we'll see you all next week. And as always, peace.